Okay, welcome back to Ramblin' Park. I've got myself and Petty Officer Squidboy here.
Squid!
Hi. Anyway, this is going to be a little bit different Ramblin' Park. We had to set the iron head aside for just a little bit because, honestly, my fault. I'm a slacker. What can I say? The parts that I ordered, they got ordered a little late, and I really don't have anything that I can do anything with it right now. So, we got something else for you. This is basically Ramblin' Park Noob Edition, and, you know, noob. So, there you go. A little bit of backstory here. Have you ever ridden a motorcycle before?
Nope.
Okay. Have you ever ridden with me before?
Yep.
Okay. So what do you want to do now?
I want to ride.
Okay. So there. Pretty cut and dried, plain and simple, right? Not quite. There's a few things we got to go through first, because basically I made him the same deal as I made his sister whenever she was looking to get her first car. And I'm like, okay, I'll help you out on it, but you're going to be invested in it. Okay. So while he's going to get today's victim, I'm going to bring you guys up to speed just a little bit here. Our kids grew up in a motorcycle shop, and they've always ridden with me. But the thing is, neither one of them ever really expressed any specific interest of, hey, I want to get my own motorcycle. And that's totally fine. You know, I let them be themselves. I let them do their own thing. But since he's no longer under Uncle Sam's thumb and on Uncle Sam's payroll, actually, he came up to me and said that, hey, I want a bike of my own. All right, cool. I'll get you started, but I'll make sure that we're getting you started off on the right foot. Because what's a better way to learn than by putting something together yourself? That way you know what's involved with it and you know how it all works. Because at the end of the day, the more you know about your motorcycle, the more proficient rider it's going to make you and the safer it's going to be for you. Push! Push! Hey, bud. Let's back that up just a tad bit because it doesn't have to be all the way up against that shoe on the front of the lift. All right, now, for obvious safety reasons, we're going to strap this thing down. Okay. Riveting TV, I know, because nobody's ever seen anybody shove a motorcycle up on the lift before, right? Okay. So basically what we got here is a bike that I recommend to a lot of people, and we just got lucky enough to where we found something that ticked off all the boxes at a price range that looked attractive. It's 2002 model Honda 750 Shadow American Classic Edition. It's got a little bit of extra safety chrome on it here and there. It's got a little bit of rust, a little bit of funk, but hey, the price was right. Most importantly, though, it had a clean title, clear title, and it only had 15,000 miles on it, or thereabouts. So, let's get started doing the autopsy on it.
All right.
So we got to figure out where we're starting from, first off. First and foremost, let's see if we got a battery. No, we do not have a battery. Batteries help. Okay, now, I said that he was going to be invested in this. And what I mean by that is he's going to be doing the majority of the work on this thing, and I'm just going to sit here and supervise, if you will. Yeah. So let's see what we can do here. Now, normally, whenever we do an autopsy video, we start at the top and work our way down to see what we need and see what we don't, see what we got and what's missing. Now, one big thing that I noticed is missing is we got no front brakes. So real quick, like, we're going to take a peek in there and see what we're up against and figure out what we got to do to fix that. Now, I'll show you a little trick here. These screws are peanut butter soft. So somebody's already kind of dicked them up a little bit. Pop the screwdriver with the heel of your hand and kind of wobble it back and forth a little bit, and that gets some of the rust and crunch, rust and funk out of there to where you'll stand a little bit better chance of getting them broke loose without tearing the heads out. Because if you beat the heads up on those things, you end up having to drill them out. There you go. Go ahead and take that thing out of there. Now, I don't expect there to be any brake fluid in there, but be careful whenever you pop the lid on it, just in case there is a little bit in there. That way it doesn't spill all over the world. There you go. Here, there's a little bit in there, but it's not really looking promising.
Yeah, no.
Actually, it's not as bad as what it could be, but take that and lay that down there along with the screws. Let's put a little bit of brake fluid in this thing and see if we can get any brake lever out of it.
Dot 3?
Well, it's dot 3, dot 4. They're cross compatible with one another. Oh, yeah, look at all the air there.
Oh, yeah.
So, well,
it tells me we need to bleed.
Well, it's going to need to be flushed and bled, and in the process, we're probably going to end up taking these hand controls off and just cleaning them up because of all the corrosion and funk that's growing on them. But hang on, let me grab the camera. I want to show everybody this. All right, guys, we're taking a ride. So, here's what we found when we opened it up. It's not horrible, doesn't look like a crime scene, but here's one thing that you need to take a good hard look at. Look right there. Now, you notice that rusty, brown, gray, whatever you want to call it looking stuff that's coming up out of there every time I squeeze a lever?
Yeah, kind of grody shit.
Yeah, now what that is that is rust from the internal spring in that master cylinder. So if we got that and we're seeing signs of that, we know it's been a long time since the brakes on this thing have been flushed and been cleaned out. So just to play it safe, we're going to pull the master cylinder off and we're going to disassemble it. We might throw a rebuild kit in there, don't know. We just got to wait and see what it looks like when we get it apart. But the big thing is we got to mitigate the rust on that return spring, because if we don't, it's going to be there and it's just going to continue on and it's still going to be there and it's going to recontaminate the fluid and the rest of the system.
Yeah.
All right, so we know where we are there and we know roughly what to expect. Don't have a mileage report for you guys right now because there's something conspicuously missing. No electrons. So we're going to wing it. Go ahead and put the lid back on there because, like I said, we know where we're at and we just needed to get an idea. The rest of the handlebar switches, they're typical Florida motorcycle sticky switches, a little bit of contact cleaner, a little bit of silicone spray. We'll be right as rain. Drum roll, please. Moment of truth. Wow. Wow. Yeah, well, it's not terrible, but it does have a little bit of rust going on inside there. But that's okay. We got a fix for that. So we know we got to go there. We know we got to do the thing. We got to do the tank. We got to do the brakes. The hand controls, they're a little sticky, not that bad. Not, it's not horrible. Again, typical Florida stuff. But we got a little bit of rust and funk going on here. We're going to have to, ew. No, gross, mechanical herpes. Yeah, nothing like cheap China chrome. Chrome don't get you home. Okay, that'll work. That locks in. You don't have to keep your foot on it. It lets itself down. All right, well, let's see here. Well, that's dropping the bucket stuff, buddy. I ain't going to worry about that too awful much because, again, chrome don't get you home. And that's a good thing, too, because those spokes are gross looking. Yeah. See the cracks in those tires? Yeah. It's okay. I knew about that, and I was figuring on that. But, I mean, let's be honest, okay? Those tires have got more cracks and lines in them than, some of the ladies walking around in a two-piece up near the villages when it's pool day. So, but all in all, it's in one piece. Doesn't look like it's ever been wadded up in a ball. Ooh, hey, shiny object, look. Aftermarket S&S air cleaner. Let's pop that thing off there and see what the air filter looks like. little bit. They'll get sticky. Hey, at least they broke loose, came out without having to get violent with them.
All right. Don't want to break up the Yokodaga.
Well, sometimes that's not a bad thing. It's just, you know, if you can avoid it, avoid it. Oops, it's got some Vance and Hines mufflers and stuff on it. So that'll make, you know, more pleasing potato noises. One of our screws tried to flee.
Did it?
Yeah, it's right there by your foot.
Following it through.
Okay, is there a filter? Yeah. Ew. It's kind of a filter. Here's what I think is hilarious, though, because these S&S air cleaners, everybody thinks, oh, it's the coolest thing in the world. Well, here's the screwed up part. It's a normal S&S air cleaner. It's got the directional cone to help smooth out airflow, but that's where the upside of everything ends, because the way they did this, if you look right there, it's got that itty bitty little hole right there that it's breathing through. This whole back plate on this S&S air cleaner kit, this is the same as a regular flat back S&S air cleaner like you use on a shovel head or an iron head, something like that. And they give you this little stupid adapter plate to make it fit on the Honda air plenum. But look at that, man. I mean, I know it's a 750, but come on, folks. That's like scuba diving using a soda straw. I mean, yeah, it'll get it done, but you're going to work your ass off in the process trying to do it. So we've got options here. We can either do a little bit of creative machining, which we may consider, or we might end up having this piece available to anybody that may be interested in it for a shovel head, iron head, or other motorcycle. Y'all let me know in the comments, and you know, let's figure something out. But in the meantime, assuming that we are going to use it, that's ew. Yeah, that's a motorcycle that's been sitting for a long time, is what that is. Because what happens is whenever, ew, I got the poo on me. What happens is whenever fuel sets and it goes stagnant and it starts to rot and smell like turpentine and everything, the fumes that it puts off, that attacks the foam in those filters, and it causes them to break down, and then you wind up with that.
Foam that falls apart like fucking fresh underway.
It's gross, man. It's really gross. But anyway, again, not a big deal. We can deal with it. We can rebuild it. We have the technology. Now, that rear tire, oh, yeah, we're definitely not riding these. That rear tire is just as in bad a shape as the front tire. And to be honest with you, after seeing that stuff, I'm not even going to worry about looking at date codes on these tires, because those things are scabby. The only benefit that these will have in this world moving forward from this is if somebody ties them up in a tree with a big piece of rope to use them as a swing. Now, that chain don't look bad right now, but we need to jack it up here in a little bit, see what kind of shape it's in, see if it's got any links froze up, anything like that, and also, you know, see if it's got any kinks in it. And we got to take a look at the sprockets and see what kind of shape those are in. Now, a couple things on these 750 Hondas that I've picked up over the years that they're prone to doing. They're prone to having an oil leak from the shift shaft seal, which is underneath this cover right here. And we're going to take a look at that. But also, one thing that's one of the biggest issues on these bikes is they will have a coolant leak from this little bitty connector pipe that's in between the cylinders right here. And this bike's got it. I seen it drooling the other day. Wasn't worried about it because, you know, hey, I got a fix for this. It's a simple fix, and it's a whole hell of a lot easier and quicker than what Honda's fix is. And when we get to that point, I'm going to show you guys how it's done. That way, if you'll have one of these bikes out there, or if you're looking at buying one, you'll be aware of it, and also you'll know how to fix it for a whole hell of a lot less time and aggravation and money than the way the book tells you to do it. All right, just for gits and shiggles, let's take a look in the toolbox and see if it may possibly have the toolkit still in there. I kind of doubt it because that's like one of the first things that everybody loses or gets rid of.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We'll see. Well, hey, pull it out of there. We ain't got a toolbox or we ain't got a toolkit, but
Got the manual.
is it both of them?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all the factory documentation that these bikes ship with. It's you and your motorcycle, riding tips and practice guide from Honda. And that's the owner's manual for this bike as well. It says it's an 01. It's kind of funny because on the title this thing's an 02.
It's an 01 on the title.
Oh, is it? Okay, my mistake. My bad. I mean, hey, let's be honest here, all right? What's one year amongst friends? But, so, what's in there?
Little dragon eggs.
We got little lizard eggs in there. It's a Florida thing, y'all. Just pay it no mind. But, now, slight sidebar here. This motorcycle came with some really, really wretched and raggedy ass looking saddlebags, and we did not even bother putting them on here for this video because, quite frankly, they were gross. And I would have been ashamed to show these things on film. Now, if you guys notice, there's a little bit of an oopsie back here on the rear fender. Got a little boo-boo right there. And these turn signals are Kuriak, and you make them whatever you want them to be. You know, that's hideous. We're not going to use those things. We're going to get those off of there and get something that looks good on there. But while we're doing all that on the back side of things, we're going to see what we can do about straightening this rear fender out to where it's not quite as asymmetrical. But since we don't have a battery for this thing, let's see what we can do to get some signs of life out of it. Yeah, that's kind of crunchy. We're gonna probably replace that, depending on what it looks like whenever we get the tank off and we get the tank prepped to derust it.
Yeah, that's our petcock back here.
Yeah, that's your fuel petcock. And luckily, this is a straight-up manual petcock. It doesn't have a vacuum line coming into the backside of it, you know, or anything like that. Because these bikes, even though this bike could gravity feed the carburetors, because the fuel tank is mounted up higher than what the carburetors are, these bikes use a fuel pump, and it comes down, goes through your filter here, and then it runs down through an electric fuel pump that's down here, comes back up, and goes back up to the carburetors. So this is just simply an on and off valve. Where that comes in handy and where it's a good thing to have is it's good practice, like whenever you park your bike for the night or whatever, if you've got a petcock where you can shut off the flow of fuel, turn it off. I mean, you'll be a lot better off for it. I mean, if you go to the gas station and you run in for 5 minutes to grab you a Snickers bar and a scratch off, you ain't got to worry about it then. But it's a hell of a thing whenever you park your bike in the garage and you come out to it a couple of days later and you look down and there's a lake of gasoline there at your shoes. So remember, kids, moral of the story is always turn your gas off. You'll thank me. Now hang on. Look at where you're going to catch on the frame here. You're barely on the edge. You need to pull that jack towards you just a little bit. There you go. That way it gives you a little bit of wiggle room in case it slides around. This little El Cheapo Amazon pancake jack that we got, they give you this, I would not dare to call it a tool, but a twisting device to jack it up. And you can see my boy here struggling with this thing because they don't give you enough to get the job done, really, unless you've got a 10-speed Schwinn that you're trying to jack up. So here in the very near future, we're going to find a dedicated El Cheapo socket and ratchet that we'll dig out of the back of the junk drawer in the toolbox somewhere that'll just live with the jack, and that way we can use it for doing that stuff. Now what you want to watch for is right here where this chain is coming off of the sprocket. See how all the links are in line? If you got any that are humped up or kinked up, that tells you that you got a link that's frozen. Are you seeing anything?
Not really.
Okay, that's a good sign. But here's the next thing that we got to look at. You see how rusty and scabby that thing is? It doesn't show on camera real well, but it has patina, let's put it that way. Anyway, what we need to do is we're going to take some WD-40 and we're going to spray that thing down, work it around, and just make sure that we don't have anything stuck or bound up in it. Okay, for everybody at home that actually may not know this, WD-40 is not a lubricant. It's not. Everybody swears up and down it is. It's not.
It's more like a degreaser.
Well, it's kind of a all-purpose light-duty do-all, but the thing is, it's really not worth a shit as a lubricant once you get right down to it. The biggest thing where it has an advantage is, like you said, it's a good degreaser because it penetrates into everything, softens it up to where you can scrub all the funk off of it. So take that spray bottle, and while you're spinning the rear tire, let's spray that chain down just to get some in there and kind of start the process. Now, this is a good time to point out a few things to y'all. Whenever you're cleaning your chain, it's a good idea to spray whatever cleaner you're using up here on the top. That way it lets gravity help kind of pull it on through. Now, that's just for cleaning, for whatever solvent or degreaser you're using. And honestly, WD-40 or kerosene, that's probably about the best readily available product that you're going to find out there outside of something that's kind of expensive and spendy that comes in a real flashy package that you really shouldn't have to pay that much money for from a motorcycle shop. But, you know, go ahead, spin the tire around, let it work in. What that's doing is that's letting it get around all the O-rings and the side plates to where it will let it, you know, penetrate in to where it's going to do the job you need it to do, start loosening up all the funk and everything. And then what we can do is we've got the goo bucket. I've got this raggedy old paintbrush that I used the other day for cleaning up some stuff on my lathe when we were setting the shop up. But what we're going to do, even though we've got a brush over in our brand new solvent tank, we're not going to use that for this right now because two reasons. One, I don't want to get all that nasty crap in our new solvent tank. And two, I don't want all that rust and funk and everything getting built up in the brush for the solvent tank, because later on down the road, if we're cleaning something that's kind of delicate, I really don't want that stuff swimming around in there. So, sacrificial dollar store paintbrush it is. Now, well, take that paintbrush and just start scrubbing down, you know, on the chain. And hang on, wait. You're going to be wearing a lot of that stuff. Take that, set that right there. Do it like that.
Okay.
And just work your way around it. Because the main thing that you're wanting to look for, you're wanting to make sure that the links aren't frozen. You want to make sure that they're going to, you know, move and pivot like they're supposed to. Now, the actual cleaning before we put this bike into service, yeah, we're going to do a more thorough job, and we're definitely going to, you know, use a little bit more aggressive methods, because honestly, that brush is so beat up and smushed out right now that it, you know, wouldn't hardly, you know, take shit off of a gnat's ass. But at least it's getting the really loose and crunchy stuff off of there to where we can see where we are and kind of take stock of where we're starting from here.
Yeah, it looks like, it doesn't help that it looks like paper from pumping.
This is true. Did you get worked all the way around there?
I think I'm about there.
How do you know? How do you know?
Oh.
Okay, I'll show you a quick way where you can kind of keep track of where you are. Every chain has got to have a way of tying itself together. You commonly call that a master link. And I just seen that little booger right there. Now, let's take a close look here, kids.
It's got enemies.
I know it's kind of hard to see, but you see how the heads of these pins have these dimples in them? That's a factory chain, and that's what they call a endless chain or a rivet link chain. Now, the way these are made, they don't have any kind of a clip or anything that slides over them. Those dimples are in the end of the pins, and what happens is after you press the side plate on to tie the chain together, there's a riveting tool that goes in that dimple, and you tighten it down, and it flares it out to lock the side plate in place. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's a very strong setup. It's probably about the second to best setup as far as retaining the side plate on a chain of anything that's available out there. Don't get me wrong, clips work, they get the job done, they've been doing the job for 100 years or so, something like that, but there's always a better way. And Honda was thinking smart whenever they did that. Now, are clip link chains bad? No, not a damn thing wrong with them. But I wouldn't buy a $30 chain and put it on a 230 horsepower Hayabusa and then go to the drag strip on Saturday night, because that's probably not going to end well. Pick your battles, folks. If you can afford to spend money on a little bit better quality chain whenever you're doing a driveline service and you're replacing the chain and sprockets, go ahead and do it. It's not about the amount of money that you spend on the front side, but there is a certain cutoff point as far as the thrifty factor goes. I see a lot of chains on Amazon and eBay and stuff like that for 25, 30 bucks. Me personally, I ain't putting something like that on my bike. I damn sure ain't putting something like that on your bike.
I wouldn't expect it to.
Well, you know, I mean, we put a lot of effort and time into growing you and, you know, teaching you stuff. So, I mean,
And then sending me, underwater.
well, no, not true. You went willingly, okay? You didn't have a gun held to your head. You're the one that decided to sign a piece of paper and say, oh, yeah, I'll do that.
Hey, they told me I could meet SpongeBob, and fuck it, I went.
Okay, good enough. Sound decision-making process, I know. Hey, good enough for me. All right, so we know where we are with the chain. We don't have any froze links in it. We're going to come back to it later on, and we're going to clean the rest of the goo off of it to where, you know, this chain has got however many miles the bike has got on it, but we'll clean it up, we'll service it, we'll scrub all the funk off of it, lube it up. You've already bought the chain, so to speak, so we might as well run it for a while and get our money's worth out of it. The sprockets themselves look to be in real good shape. You know, you don't have any hooking or any kind of significant wear on the sprocket teeth.
Now,
It's got,
what does it mean by hooking?
well, here I'll show you. Where's that other shop towel you had?
Right here.
Now, let me see that. I need that. Okay, what I'm talking about a sprocket hooking over is, if you look at the profile of those sprocket teeth, they're fairly uniform from the front side to the back side. Now, as this chain and sprocket set wears, it's going to wear more so on this side of the tooth here, because we're looking at the bottom, and it will look like it's developing a slight hook shape to it. And the reason that is just road funk, rust, sand, whatever. It builds up on the chain, and it slowly abrades away the sprocket teeth to where it eventually wears it to where it looks like a hook.
Okay. And we already know that it ain't really been real long nor hard.
Not too much. I mean, you know, full disclosure, this was a lady's bike. You know, it was a lady that we bought the bike from. I don't know if she was the original purchaser, but, well, let's just say that talkative Tammy, and you know who I'm talking about here, yeah, let's just say that she wasn't a member of the Iron Butt Club, and she didn't put a whole lot of hard miles on this thing. Not sure, well, not sure when this bike got used harder, from getting pushed around in her backyard or going to Starbucks. But either way, I don't know. Y'all figure it out. I'm just dealing with what I got in front of me. Well, due to a unforeseen technical event, translation, my dumbass forgot to charge the camera battery. There's a lot of stuff that we got done on this motorcycle last night that unfortunately we didn't get on camera because my feeble little caveman brain didn't realize, hey, dummy, the camera's dead. So anyway, just a kind of quick recap on this. You know, everything was pretty much the way we expected it. You know, I mean, we got some ganky carbs that we've already ripped off there. We got a little bit of schmutz and schmooze that we've got to clean up and, you know, just evict all the dust bunnies and dirt daubers. And yeah, there's some of those there too. But anyway, we did find a couple of things on this bike that's a little bit uh, below board, so to speak. One thing that I noticed whenever we were first shopping on this bike is it's got an aftermarket headlight, and I'm pretty sure that this is an Azure unit. Yep, it says so right there. Never even bothered to look at the logo, but yeah, that's a headlight from Azure, and it's kind of a high dollar piece. Unfortunately, it's a little bit on the rusty and rotted and crusty side right now, but that's not where things get interesting. That's where things get interesting because all of that stuff is supposed to go in the stock headlight bucket on this thing, and they had it all crammed up in here and smashed in place with the little plastic frame neck cover laying on top of all of it. And yeah, it don't need to be that way because we've got duct tape, we've got bullet connectors, we've got who knows what it is wire galore. So we're going to have to deal with all that stuff. So give me just a second and we'll kind of recap on everything else here. Okay, so it's the next day and I'm out here with Petty Officer Squid Boy, and me and my son decided, you know what, hey, it's hot, it's Florida, it's muggy, so you know, what do you call them things?
My Air Jesus ones.
Air Jesus ones, okay? I mean, I'm pretty sure that we're not going to get an endorsement from Nike on those things, but you know, who knows? We might, you know, take a piece of cardboard and cut it into a swoosh just for shits and giggles. Me, I'm still rocking the, you know, old school flip flops. You know, call me a traditionalist, but hey, I'm comfortable, damn it, so it works for me. But we come up with a couple of ideas, and we had to put our thinking caps on. Thinking cap time. And coincidentally, my thinking cap just happens to match my shirt. What, y'all thought I forgot? Come on now. All right, so basically what we did last night during thinking cap time, we kind of took a look around the bike here and there, and we discussed, you know, what he wants to do with the bike as far as making it his own, and also we're trying to balance that out with what's practical and what's going to be safe and reliable long term. So a couple things that we're going to do on here. You guys probably already noticed that the rear fender's off of it. We did that because it's got a little ding-ding in the back side of it, and we're going to pull that out, and we may shoot a little paint on that. We may not. It just depends on how everything comes out there. But one thing that we are going to do, he was not a fan of these big beach bars that we put up that was on the bike whenever we got it. And I can't blame him for that because the angle on your wrist with beach bars to me just feels all kind of wrong. And especially for a new rider, you want to be in a fairly neutral position. You don't want to have to do a whole lot of gymnastics to get on the bike and to control the bike. So we're putting different bars on it, but since we're putting different bars on there, what we're going to do while we're swapping bars out, this rat's nest of factory wiring and all that stuff, we're going to take that out of there. And what we're going to do is whatever bars we end up going with, we're going to drill them and we're going to run the wires internally inside the bars. While we're there, we're going to go ahead and do a preemptive fix, if you will, on the riser bushings that Honda uses in these top triple trees. This is one thing I'm starting to see a lot of in the shop on a regular basis. We'll have these bikes come in and the riser bushes will be real floppy, especially if somebody's put tall bars or wider bars on there. And they take a pretty good beating, and they're not nearly as easily replaceable as what a Harley riser bushing is. So I've got a fix for that, and we'll touch back on that whenever we get to that point. But what we are going to do is we're going to move some stuff around a little bit, because if we're doing external wiring on these bars, the wires have got to come out somewhere. So why not make it look a little cooler while we're here, making it a little more practical? So we're going to swap bars, we're going to reroute wires, and then this amber indicator light that's on the top triple tree right here, that's the indicator light that's for the turn signal to, hey, dummy, your turn signal's been on for the last 6 miles, okay? People behind you are catching epilepsy from the constant flashing. Turn it off. That turn signal indicator, that's going to come out of there. and we're going to do a little bit of machine work on that top triple tree while we've got it off fixing the riser bushing issue. And that's where the wires are going to route down. That way they don't look like they're just laying over the top of the front triple tree and, looking like absolute crap. So what we are going to do for a turn signal indicator is right here. On the stock gauge cluster on these bikes, you've got your trip reset button here. You've got your, hey dummy, you're out of oil, big angry red light here. You've got your, hey dummy, your bike's fixing to melt into the pavement overheat light here. And then you probably got the most useless indicator that Honda's ever put on a motorcycle. They've got this big yellow light right here, and its sole purpose in life is to let you know, hey dummy, your kickstand's down. Now, for new riders, such as him, that may be beneficial. However, what we're going to do is we're going to relocate the turn signal indicator light from up there to down there, and that way we can run our wires down through the top triple tree to where it doesn't look like a mess of spaghetti coming down from the bottom of the handlebars. And just to be practical about things, we had this conversation last night. Most metric motorcycles have a safety interlock system built into them with a switch on the kickstand, which is right here on this particular model. And they also have a safety switch on the clutch, which is right here. Now, the way those two work is when the bike's in neutral, it'll run with the kickstand down because obviously, there's going to be times where you want to walk away from the bike while it's warming up, while you're getting your gear on or what have you. But the minute that you put the bike in gear and it no longer sees a signal from the neutral switch in the transmission, guess what? It kills the ignition. That way it keeps you from riding off with your kickstand down. Well, same thing with the clutch switch. If it sees you put it in gear, it kills the ignition and it won't let the bike crank back up for obvious safety reasons to keep the bike from lurching out from underneath you if it sees the kickstand down. So we're going to take that useless little hey dummy your kickstand light is hey dummy your kickstand is down light, and we're going to make it go away because honestly it's kind of redundant. Now, carburetor wise, these are typical nasty, gnarly, grubby and cruddy, carburetors that's been sitting on a bike for a couple of years. It's been laying stagnant. Ew, I got dirty. Gross. Anyway, so one way or the other, you guys may get lucky enough to actually get a decent carburetor build video out of me on this one. Because if we've got time and we got the opportunity, we're going to do a full breakdown on these things, and we're going to record it step by step. That way you can see the process from start to finish about how to correctly and thoroughly clean a set of carburetors, get them back on the bike, get them set up and running correctly. Now, one thing that we're probably going to do is, you guys remember when we first rolled the bike in here, we had this nifty little S&S air cleaner on the side of it that somebody had put on there. And at first I thought, okay, hey, cool. Well, you guys saw the air filter that kind of disintegrated into mush, and yeah, it was mush. It's still mush. The bizarre part about this, and I can't honestly see that this was actually produced and marketed by a company, because the way this thing installs, it goes up and it bolts to the backside of a traditional S&S back plate, and it bolts up. I'm a little crooked. There we go. It bolts up just like that. Now let me hold this up to the daylight to where you guys can see how big the hole actually is. It ain't much, and it's kind of strangling this thing down. And especially considering the fact that this is the factory Honda air plenum boot that normally lives right there, you can see how much area we've got in here that thing's supposed to breathe through. Now, granted, on the stock Honda Airbox, there's a snorkel on the backside, and it's not this big. It does choke it down, but it don't choke it down that damn much, okay? That's kind of like scuba diving with a soda straw. Here's what was really concerning to me, though. The way this bolts on here, that adapter plate goes on that plenum, and when it bolts up and the bolt holes are lined up, you can see right there in the corner, that's the edge of the air plenum seal that goes against this piece of plate steel that bolts the air cleaner back there. And if you look real close here, let me get you into some daylight, you can see where that rubber seal had been squashed out of the way. So that's the way it was when I pulled it off. So not only was it restricting airflow, it was allowing unfiltered air to bypass around the air cleaner and make it into the motor. Now, in a street environment, in the grand scheme of things, that's probably not that big of a deal. But it ain't right, and we're going to make it right. So in addition to the handlebars, one thing that we are going to do is the little Scully dude Kuriakin levers. I'm sorry, man, those things got to go. Yeah, and it's partly personal preference, but also it's partly common sense safety. Because let's be real here, you're a new rider, you're having to learn, and let's be honest, you're going to have an oopsie. All right, there's going to be times where you're going to have a parking lot drop, or you're going to be like, or brain process fails to load exe, and you're going to fall over. Now, my big gripe about these things are sharp, man. And if you've got your hands wrapped around that grip and you tip over and that lever comes back and smacks into your hand, that's going to hurt you, like bad. I mean, you're going to get a boo-boo from it anyway, but there's no sense in doubling down on the dumb factor. So, moving along, just to recap here, these spot lamps, these are most likely a Cobra spot lamp kit, and they've got the old school sealed beam lights in them. The housings are rusty and crusty and kind of gross. The turn signals are definitely beyond repair, because I don't care what kind of polish in the world you use, you ain't bringing them things back. So we're going to clean all that up. Basically, the only thing that we're going to reuse is the light bar itself, but we made the executive decision last night that since we're doing electrical work on the handlebars and also on the indicator lights, yada, 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 we are going to go ahead and do a full LED conversion on this bike. And also, we're going to show you guys what you need to do modification-wise to be able to run LEDs on a motorcycle, such as headlights, turn signals, how to get your turn signals to flash at the proper rate, and also, in this case, since you've got a single indicator bulb, how to keep it from making all 4 turn signals flash all the time, because of voltage bleed over back and forth from one side to the other. Because what happens, that voltage will transfer through the bulb in the indicator light, and it'll light up all 4 of them, because LEDs are such a low current draw bulb that, I mean, you can literally run them off of a watch battery. So we're going to show you guys how we deal with that. I mean, what do you think?
I think it's a good idea.
You up for it?
Sure.
Okay. We're going to have some time in it. We're going to have some elbow grease into it. But at the end of the day, all in all, you're going to have a damn solid bike to where it's going to be comfortable for you. It's going to be reliable for you. Most importantly, it's going to be safe for you to learn on. And I'm sorry, I'm a little bit biased here, but I mean, let's be real. We invested a lot of time and money growing this, okay? I mean, you know, you always want the best for your kids. I know there's sometimes you got to let them crash and burn on their own and, you know, let them learn the hard way, but this ain't one of them times. Okay, so just to kind of summarize things here, we got a $1,000 Facebook Marketplace bike. We got a noob rider, and honestly, he don't know shit from Shinola about a motorcycle at this point in time, but we're going to change that. And I ain't shot at him. I mean, I can pick on him a little bit because, you know, me and the wife unit grew that. Well, mostly it was on her, okay? She, well, it's like this. She was a manufacturing facility, and, you know, I was, you know, basically R&D. Yeah, go figure. I don't know. But anyway, first things first, we talked about this, and the carb work is going to happen first, because you can do all the pretty shit on a bike in the world that you want to, but until you hear it run, you don't know if you got a solid bike out of the deal. So we're going to make this thing run before we do anything else, just to make sure that we don't have a rod that's fixing to make its own inspection window in the crankcase and go out the side. Honestly, I don't think we're going to have a problem with that, but it's always a chance that you take whenever you buy a non-runner. So keep that in mind whenever you're shopping for a potential bike to build for a project, all right? But like I said, you guys are going to get a carb bit out of this thing. We're going to sit down. We're going to film the whole process, start to finish. I'm going to show you guys the steps that I use, the techniques that I use, and also the products that I use, and the reasons why. So at the end of all that, once we make the motorcycle run and we know that it's running properly, I'm going to go over a couple of things with you that I've already discussed with him as far as the steps that we need to take and the way that you need to prioritize things from that point moving forward. So, yeah, it's going to be a time investment. We're going to have to throw a couple of bucks at it here and there. But the biggest investment that you're going to have is your gray matter and, just how much blood you're willing to sacrifice to the flying dinosaurs / mosquitoes that, inherit the Florida peninsula so prevalently. So throughout the next couple of weeks, we're going to be working on bringing this thing back from the dead, and we're bringing a new rider into the fold. So please be patient with us, but also I'd appreciate your support on this, because if you don't know who we are or what we do, check us out over on Patreon at joethemountainjedi /patreon.com. Or you can hit me up here on the YouTubes. Just search Joe the Mountain Jedi. That's probably where you're watching this right now, so that's kind of a redundant statement. But on the odd chance that you blundered into this and you have absolutely no idea how you got here, you can check us out over on Instagram at Joe the Mountain Jedi. And also, there's going to be a Facebook page for Joe the Mountain Jedi coming up here very shortly, okay? And I'm sorry, that whole finger pointing thing, that's rude, that's bad, and my wife would absolutely chastise me for that, because that's the one thing that they train them, don't point, that's bad. It's true.
I fear darkness hunts us. Use what you've learned and stay the course.